everyone, it's Hayes, and in today's video we are going to be doing the commentary / analysis for episode 15 of Miraculous Ladybug season 4, Glaciator 2. And already. Okay. I love this episode. Dare I say it, I think this might be my favourite episode so far this season. And it wasn't just because of the Mary chat, but we'll get into it in a minute. So before I go any further, as always, I'm about to spoil the entire episode for you. So if you haven't seen it, please check the description box for some links where you can go and watch the episode. But please know those links will eventually expire as they get taken down for copyright and things like that. And also one more thing before we carry on. Thank you so much for 11,000 subscribers. We only hit 10,000 subscribers last week. So I don't know how I managed to get 1,000 in just over a week. It's kind of confusing. Grateful, I'm very grateful, but I'm also confused. But anyway, yes, thank you so much. I was going to put up a community post, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to be filming tomorrow. I may as well just wait, because it kind of happened later on in the day. I may as well just wait to say thank you in the video. So thank you so much. So, my quick thoughts on this episode. I am going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. I will explain why it's not a full 10 out of 10, because there is just one thing in this episode that's a bit like, kind of annoying me, and I will explain it when I get to that. But otherwise, this episode, absolutely loved. And it wasn't just because of the Love Square content. Did I enjoy it for the Love Square content? Absolutely. The Adrianette, the little bit we got, was great. The Lady Noir was great as well. And the Mary chat was beautiful. Oh my god. Let me know if you want a full screaming session where we could break down absolutely everything they said tomorrow. It was just beautiful. I loved it. The relationships in this episode were just wonderful, they were beautiful. However, whilst I did enjoy that aspect of it, and I enjoyed it immensely, the thing that I liked even more about this episode was the structure of the episode. It is so different to, I think, any other episode of Miraculous. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but usually an episode does have a fairly big focus on the Akuma attack, and whilst we had 2 Akuma attacks in this episode, nearly 3 with what happened with Adrian, we'll talk about that in a minute, but I really liked how the structure wasn't all focused on the Akuma attack and the Akuma villain. Andre really kind of more took a backseat in this episode in comparison to other Akuma villains from other episodes. I just love the structure in this. Like, as a writer, my speciality when I write is relationships, so the thing I look for most when I'm reading or watching something are relationships, which is why I like Miraculous so much, obviously. But the way this episode was done, I just absolutely loved. So yeah, partially loved it because of the Love Square, but I really liked it because of how different the structure of this episode was. It was something really different, but it worked really well. And I do kind of wish they would do more episodes like this that would focus more on Adrian and Marinette with their relationship and just how they're feeling as people. It was a bit of a deeper insight look into them, especially Adrian, and yeah, this was such a good episode. I loved it so much. Watched it first thing this morning in French. Did I understand it word for word? No, but I was like, this episode, this is it. Oh my, it was so good. Right, let's get into it. So first of all, I do have to ask. So they're in the park, Andre's akumatized, the bin man shows in the magazine. And those pictures, okay, we know the picture from Oblivio, Alia took. But the rest of those close-ups, who got them? Do they have like a, was it Peter Parker from Spider-Man? Do they have someone like that following them around that we've just never seen before, who was getting all these amazing photos and neither Ladybug and Cat Noir have noticed yet? I mean, I'm not complaining, but how did it happen? Okay, and I also really love that Ladybug was just so annoyed by that point. She just forgot to give Andre a charm, even though she had done the lucky charm, and she admits later on when she actually does give him the charm, like, oh, sorry, I forgot to give it you. I was just like, she is so angry that she just forgot to give him the charm. It was great. And I did kind of find it funny how she ended up putting Cat Noir in a bin. But then how did she get him on the roof? Like, I would assume it's probably the buildings near the park that she got him onto the roof of. but how? I know as Ladybug she is stronger than as Marinette, like Marinette wouldn't be able to do this, I understand. But like it's still another human being, and like Adrien is both taller and wider than Marinette, so he's already heavier than her. Plus he's also in a bin. We have the same kinds of bins in England. Those bins are not light even when they're empty, and this one had an entire person in. So I'm just like, I'm trying not to think about it too much, but I'm just like, how did that work? It's probably best not to think about it too much. And I was like, I already knew from the leaked script, we already knew there was going to be an argument in this episode, and I was kind of nervous for it. But it kind of was more of a nice argument, I guess, because Ladybug was the one who was angry, and Cat Noir, I mean, he responded, but he wasn't arguing back, you know what I mean? He was talking quite calmly, and she could quite clearly see he was upset. You know, I really like, feel free to disagree with me, but in my opinion, I really like how Cat Noir, even though it's obvious he's in love with her and he does flirt with her, and even though he asks her out all the time, to me he's not like harassing her, you know what I mean? Like he's not like trying to force her to go out with him. He like suggests it, she says no. Could it be like deemed as harassment? Yeah, maybe, I guess. But to me he's not being rude about it. Yeah, he keeps trying and trying, hoping one day she's gonna fall for him, but she hasn't done. So I didn't personally mind him keep asking her, to be honest. He's quite nice about it. At no point did I ever feel he was trying to force Ladybug to go with him, but I do feel from this episode onwards there has been a marked difference in that Cat Noir. Whilst he's still cheeky and funny in the episodes we've seen, he is a lot less flirty with Ladybug. Like, let's just forget about Hack-Sam, the episode after this one, because they only have one scene together. Rocketeer, they don't even really speak in Rocketeer. Wishmaker, ain't nobody got time for flirting in Wishmaker. And Simple Man, again, I guess it's probably hard to tell because of the simplification, but he just is less flirty. I'm not saying he's not being himself, but he is definitely less flirty, so he's obviously taken that on board. But again, in Simple Man he does say, I am in love with Ladybug, so he's still in love with her. He still loves her, but like he's obviously recognised that, you know, he doesn't want to harass her, and she quite obviously hates it, judging from this episode that the whole of Paris views them as a couple. So to me he's just perfect, and honestly I think the way Adrien is has just ruined me for other men. If the guy I like is not like exactly like Adrien in terms of personality, then I think it's gonna have to be a no, you know what I mean, moving forward after this show. However, despite their argument being resolved quite quickly and being kind of nice, because it was relatively a one-sided argument, I did just feel bad for him throughout all of it, and I was just so sad when he deleted the pictures. I was like, oh my god, no, don't do it. But then luckily he restores them at the end of the episode. I was like, okay, so it restored my faith. He is still in love with her, but I just felt so bad for him. And then when he was crying in the park, like I know we saw it in the trailer, but it wasn't obvious that he was crying. I just thought he saw the poster and was like, oh, okay, and was just kind of defeated about it. I didn't realise he was crying. I just felt bad for him, and if you didn't feel bad for Adrien in this episode, then I don't know what to tell you, mate. I don't know what to tell you, bestie. Like, if you didn't feel bad for Adrien, then you must not have a soul, essentially. So then Marinette sees him from her balcony and she's like, I gotta get this present, gotta go and talk to him. This is the only way I can possibly do it. I can't just walk into the park and bump into him. Like, she should have done that. Just go for a walk in the park and be like, oh, hey Adrien, didn't know you'd be here. Like, I guess again it's echoing Simple Man that she doesn't need to make all these complicated plans. She just needs to tell him, which again was echoed by the time her and Cat Noir have finished practicing the confession right at the end of the episode. She just needs to speak from her heart and say how she feels without getting nervous, which I know is a lot easier said than done, believe me. But she just needs to do it, which I know is very difficult for her around Adrien. But like in Simple Man, I think this could be like foreshadowing in the season finale. So Adrien is leaving Paris with Lila, and Marinette's gonna try and stop by maybe either revealing herself as Ladybug or confessing she has feelings for him, or a mixture of the two. And I think it's going to be just like in the moment, spur of the moment, she has to stop him from leaving. She has no time for an elaborate plan. She just has to tell him straight up, like we saw in this episode, like we saw in Simple Man. Having this instance twice now, like in Simple Man, yeah, it was sweet to see her realise that, but now we've had it in Glaciator 2. I know it was said before, but now we've had it twice. I think it's too big of a coincidence, you know what I mean? So I think it's definitely foreshadowing that, and if it's not, I guess it's just Marinette coming to the realisation she doesn't need a complex plan to do this. I don't know. I definitely think it could be hinting at that. However, when it got to the bit of the park where she did give him the present and the screen goes all pink and orange with the bubbles and the cute music, I 100% believed it was real, and I clowned myself because why would it be real, Hazel? Why would it? I am an idiot. Okay, just... Anyway, so then Adrian goes home after he nearly gets akumatized, which was just wow. But I guess, you know, Daddy aggressed. He was like, you know what, let's not akumatize my own son. And I know he does akumatize him in Chat Blanc. That was a very different situation. He just found out he was Chat Noir, you know what I mean? So it was a very different situation. So obviously in this timeline he still cares deeply about Adrian. By the time we get to the akumatization in Chat Blanc, he's obviously, for whatever reason, now despises his son for fighting against him all this time. I don't know his logic exactly, but you know, Daddy Agrest is, he has a heart somewhere. But I love the scene between him and Adrian. The dialogue and relationships explored in this episode was just amazing. It was just like, the scene in particular though, parenting 101, and like Adrian, his facial expression, absolutely loved it during this scene. He had absolutely had it with his dad. It's like, Dad, I don't care anymore. Like, why would Adrian go to his dad to talk things through when his dad can barely be available? Like, Adrian, if he was sad and did need to talk to his dad, he'd probably still have to book it in with Natalie. Like, you shouldn't have to go through a secretary to talk to your dad. You should just be able to walk in and be like, hey, I'm feeling sad. Can I have some advice? A hug? Something. You know what I mean? Like, why would Adrian go to him? Like, I appreciated the gesture from Gabriel, but like, why would Adrian go to him? But it kind of was a funny scene. Just Adrian's face 100% made it, and then how awkward Gabriel was being talking to his 14-year-old son, who he is essentially emotionally neglecting. So it was funny, but also sad. A lot of this episode was kind of sad. And now let's talk about Kagami. Now, since Mr. Pigeon 72, I have started to appreciate Kagami as really, you know, being there for Adrianette. She's 100% an Adrianette shipper now. I love that for her. But I'm a bit confused by her logic in this episode. I understand we later on find out it was inspired by a manga, so that does partially explain some things. But I don't know why she thought, yes, Marinette confessing, that is going to like cure Adrian of how he's feeling. The logic was a bit skewed. I know Kagami's heart is in the right place and I am with her about Adrian and Marinette getting together. I'm with you, girl. But this didn't make sense. I was like, okay. I'm not 100% sure. I think they could have made this episode better, and this isn't coming from a place of my hatred for Kagami, because yes, I do still hate her, even though she's an Adrianette shipper now. But I don't particularly feel she was needed in this episode, really. I think they could have just shown Adrian being really sad in some other way. We already got he was really sad by him crying in the park, his conversation with his dad, deleting photos with Ladybug, going around destroying the billboards. We already got that message. The fencing, yeah, was another added thing, but I don't think they necessarily needed it. Just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree with me. I know some of you really like Kagami. I am not one of those people, okay? But all of you know that, so it's alright. Now we need to talk about the scene where Marinette is practicing her confession to Cat Noir. And this scene is the reason why it's not a full 10. Now, in general, this scene, I absolutely love the way it was written. The dialogue was amazing, the relationship between them, the way it was portrayed on screen, both with the writing, the animation direction, and the voice acting was absolutely amazing. However, the setup for the scene is what I'm not happy with. I believe when they released the synopsis for this, and I made a video on the synopsis trying to analyse it and break it down, I had worried that Marinette was going to be like, oh hey Cat Noir, help me practice my love confession on you. And whilst the premise of that, no problem with the premise of that, I do have a problem with it because she is aware that Cat Noir is in love with her. Now obviously he doesn't know that Marinette is Ladybug, but Marinette obviously does know she is Ladybug. So I do feel it is very cruel to practice on someone who is in love with you whilst you practice confessing to someone else. Obviously that someone else is him, but she doesn't know that. He doesn't know it's him, but she is aware that he is in love with her. So why would you do that? This would be a different case if Marinette wasn't aware Cat Noir was in love with Ladybug. That would be a completely different situation, but she does know, and I do somewhat find that to be really cruel, to be honest. So that's the reason why it's not a full 10. Maybe if the premise had been she was on her balcony thinking about how to confess to Adrien because of what Kagami had told her. Again, Kagami's logic completely skewed in this episode, but okay. If she had been doing that, and then maybe Cat Noir had come to visit her looking for advice on love, and she was like, honestly, I'm not the best to ask, not the best person to ask, I'm actually trying to work out a way to confess to my crush, but I'm struggling with it, and then he was like, oh hey, you should totally practice on me, and then she was like, no, because obviously she knows he technically has a crush on her, but then he insists. I would have preferred that as a setup rather than her like calling him over so she could do that. You know what I mean? To me that's cruel. Just my opinion, but it is cruel. So that's the reason why it's not a full 10, but otherwise this scene was absolutely amazing. The way they were laughing with each other, they're just acting themselves. They have a great relationship together. That's why I love Maricat so much, because they can act themselves around the other person without any pressure, and I just love seeing it. Same again with them being in the cinema, the movie theatre, sorry, and then on their walk back to Marinette's, or then not walk back to Marinette's. It was just great. I love Maricat because they get to be themselves around each other. Like Marinette, never in a million years would she ever act around Adrien like the way she acted around Cat Noir on her balcony, and vice versa. He wouldn't act that way in front of Marinette as Adrien either. So yeah, and also it just kind of speaks, in my opinion anyway, it just speaks to how comfortable Marinette feels around Cat Noir, but also how comfortable Adrien obviously feels around Marinette, that he feels he can be that way. Obviously he is behind a mask, so he has some protection, but Maricat just makes me so happy. I know they're not technically in love with the other person because they don't know who the other person is, but because they get to be so comfortable around the other person, it just makes me so soft for them. Okay, I'm so happy for those scenes, and it was done amazingly in this episode. And then of course, oh my god, we got an umbrella scene. First of all, didn't know his baton could do that. Does Ladybug's yo-yo do anything remotely similar? I have no idea, but it was so cute. Obviously it wasn't a romantic umbrella scene like the other two we got in Origins and then Mr. Pigeon 72. It was very much a platonic, let me walk you home out of the rain sort of thing. However, Marinette got to hear just how sincere Cat Noir's feelings were. I think maybe she sometimes thinks, because of how flirty and cheeky he is, that maybe he's not all that sincere in his feelings, but he was quite serious in that scene about how he feels for Ladybug, but also how he doesn't want to, you know, annoy her with those feelings, which I think Marinette 100% gets. That's again another reason why I like Maricat. It gives Marinette more chance to get to know Cat Noir on a more human level out of battle, and when he's being less cheeky and flirty, because obviously he doesn't have feelings for her that he knows of. Although in my opinion, Adrien totally has feelings for Marinette. Like, if you're trying to deny it, like, don't. Did you see the way he looked at her in Guilt Trip? I love that scene. I think about it all the time. You already know I think about it all the time. But then we had the kiss, and I was pretty sure when the spoiler for it got released that it was going to be, is it called a bisou in French, where it's just like the friendly hello, goodbye, thank you kiss. I'm not really sure how it works. I was a bit sad, but I had a feeling it was more of a friendly kiss, because why would they share a romantic kiss? They've got no reason to share a romantic kiss. Like, why would they? Doesn't make any sense. So now we have the Akuma battle, and this is just my opinion, but I really liked how succinct it was. I don't really like Akuma battles that are really long and drawn out unless it's like the finale of a season. I prefer ones that are shorter, just my personal preference, because I really like exploring more of the relationships in the show, which is why I love this episode so much, because the Akuma battle is usually a pretty big focus of the episode, whereas this episode, I'm not saying the Akuma battle was an afterthought, but it was definitely a less significant part of the episode in comparison to the relationships and characterization that was explored. So I really liked the fact the Akuma battle took a bit of a backseat, but oh my god, it was an amazing Akuma battle. And also, like, extreme sports, you know what I mean? That wasn't phrased correctly, but I'm not sure how I should be phrasing it. Like, at one point they managed to switch seats, so Cat Noir starts off driving when she gets a Lucky Charm, then she goes out the roof, gets a yo-yo, wraps it around Andre, and then when we see them back in the car, Ladybug is now driving. How did they manage to do that? I don't know. And then at some point Cat Noir also gets out the car whilst it's moving. Like I said, I'm trying not to think about the physics of this episode too much, but like, how? I don't know if I'm it looked really cool though, it looked cool. So I really enjoyed this Akuma attack because it was short and the majority of the episode was focused on the relationships, which I absolutely loved. And then also, amazingly, Cat Noir caught Andre. Again, I know he has extra strength as Cat Noir, but oh my god, okay. And then Ladybug, I was kind of disappointed she only threw the keys into the air. I had a feeling it was going to be the keys, but I feel like together all three of you could make a really, a fairly good effort to get the car airborne. Just saying, I feel like team effort, you could have done it, but you didn't, and that was laziness, and I'm not here for it, Ladybug, okay? I feel like next time you get a big Lucky Charm, which I'm hoping next time is like a helicopter or an aeroplane, judging with the way the vehicles have been slowly getting bigger, I expect you to throw it in the air. No excuses, okay? That's what I want. So after the Akuma attack, Cat Noir goes back to check on Marinette, which I loved, absolutely loved it. Just this whole episode, the majority of it just heartwarming, loved it, and her confession was amazing and also inspired Adrian to restore all the Ladybug pictures on his computer. This episode was so wonderful. I don't really have any bad things to say about it, apart from I'd say the bit about Kagami, not 100% sure they even needed her in this episode or to even show the fencing in this episode, just my opinion, feel free to disagree with me. And I was a bit weirded out by the context setup of the rehearsing the confession scene, just because in my opinion it is kind of cruel for Marinette to do that when she knows how Cat Noir feels about her. You know what I mean? I'd be really hurt by that. So whilst he doesn't know right now who Marinette is, she does know who he is. So I really feel like in this situation she should have known better than to do that with him. Again, just my opinion, but those are kind of primarily the two reasons why this episode isn't higher. But feel free to disagree with me. So overall, 9.5 out of 10, best episode this season so far, and I think it's gonna get better / more traumatizing. You know what I mean? Best line in the episode was when Cat Noir dropped Marinette home after the cinema, and he was like, "You have been flying with Air Cat Noir." It was great. I loved the comedy sections of this episode, and like the banter between the banter was amazing. And MVP of the episode, I think it's gonna have to be Adrian. He also got the MVP in Dearest Family. Cat Noir was amazing in Dearest Family. But Adrian in this episode, he went through so much, but I really feel we got some development for both him as well as his relationships with his dad, with Marinette, and with Ladybug. I know they're the same people, but he obviously has a different relationship with both of the girls because he doesn't know they're the same person. obviously. He was amazing in this episode. So I'd really love to know what you thought of the episode. What was the best line? What was your favourite part? Who would you put as the MVP? How many marks out of 10? Whatever your thoughts are on this episode. I loved it. I don't think there's much we can really take from the episode to predict about the rest of the season, since we've seen all of the episodes around it apart from episode 20, other than I think it's maybe gonna foreshadowing Marinette's just telling Adrian very plainly in the finale how she feels, which I'm hoping for, please. But it was just incredible episode. 9.5 out of 10. My favourite episode so far, partly because of the love square. We got 3 parts of the love square as well as a different structure. So I'd love to know what you think, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!